Harriet was in the sales department of a firm that designed and supplied building materials. David was an architect. So what was it about these two that made them freaks and oddballs? It was their attitude to sex. This was the 60s. David had had one long and difficult affair with a girl he was reluctantly in love with. She was what he did not want in a girl. They joked about the attraction between opposites. She joked that he thought of reforming her. "I do believe you imagine you are going to put the clock back, starting with me." Since they had parted, unhappily enough, she had slept, so David reckoned, with everyone at Sisson's, Blend & Co. With the girls, too, he wouldn't be surprised. She was here tonight, in a scarlet dress with black lace, a witty travesty of a flamenco dress. From this concoction her head startlingly emerged. It was pure 1920s, for her black hair was sleeked down into a spike on her neck at the back, with two glossy black spikes over her ears and a black lock on her forehead. She sent frantic waves and kisses to David from across the room, where she circled with her partner, and he smiled matily back, no hard feelings. As for Harriet, she was a virgin. "A virgin now?" her girlfriends might shriek. "Are you crazy?" She had not thought of herself as a virgin, if this meant a physiological condition to be defended, but rather as something like a present wrapped up in layers of deliciously pretty paper, to be given, with discretion, to the right person. Her own sisters laughed at her. The girls working in the office looked studiedly humorous when she insisted, "I am sorry, I don't like all this sleeping around. It's not for me." She knew she was discussed as an always interesting subject, and usually unkindly, with the same chilly contempt that good women of her grandmother's generation might have used, saying, "She is quite immoral, you know," or "She's no better than she ought to be," or "She hasn't got a moral to her name." Then, her mother's generation, "She's man-mad," or "She's a nympho." So did the enlightened girls of now say to each other, "It must be something in her childhood that's made her like this. Poor thing." And indeed, she had sometimes felt herself unfortunate or deficient in some way, because the men with whom she went out for a meal or to the cinema would take her refusal as much as evidence of a pathological outlook as an ungenerous one. She had gone about with a girlfriend, younger than the others, for a time, but then this one had become like all the others, as Harriet despairingly defined her, defining herself as a misfit. She spent many evenings alone, and went home often at weekends to her mother, who said, "Well, you're old-fashioned, that's all. And a lot of girls would like to be, if they got the chance." These two eccentrics, Harriet and David, set off from their respective corners towards each other at the same moment. This was to be important to them, as the famous office party became part of their story. Yes, at exactly the same time. They had to push past people already squeezed against walls. They held their glasses high above their heads to keep them out of the way of the dancers. And so they arrived together at last, smiling, but perhaps a trifle anxiously, and he took her hand, and they squeezed their way out of this room into the next, which had the buffet and was as full of noisy people, and through that into a corridor sparsely populated with embracing couples, and then pushed open the first door whose handle yielded to them. It was an office that had a desk and hard chairs, and, as well, a sofa. Silence. Well, almost. They sighed. They set down their glasses. They sat facing each other so they might look as much as they wished, and then began to talk. They talked as if talk were what had been denied to them both, as if they were starving for talk. And they went on sitting there, close, talking, until the noise began to lessen in the rooms across the corridor, and then they went quietly out into his flat, which was near. There they lay on his bed holding hands, and talked, and sometimes kissed, and then slept. Almost at once she moved into his flat, for she had been able to afford only a room in a big communal flat. They had already